Hey, doing well.
Let's see. My hands are wet, so you know they're clean.
Busy couple live here.
Hey, at least you're not in a suit this time. At least you're not in a suit this time. You look much more comfortable, dude.
And he got our email.
It's kind of really wonderful. They don't get it right, and it is kind of bad, you know. Sometimes they change them We do work with really sold our to Latin bands and Black worship. Yeah, really.
Check outside, make sure nobody's like, well.
Hi, Mr. Cameron, how are you? And then I get all stressed out.
Right over there, my business card.
How are you, sir? Welcome. Good to see you.
Just live like you can.
How are you?
I didn't want to do anything. So I asked them to have it taken separately. So I show it off because normally it's welcome. Glad you're here.
Last Friday.
All right. Josh, come on up forward. Come on.
That's probably something you want to do is turn my phone on silent. So,
Okay. There we go.
we're going to do 4. Thank you,
I am not saying anything.
I
said nothing.
I said if they're going to be a thorn between two guys.
I'm saying nothing.
Smart man. I'm just kidding.
Well, good evening. How is everyone doing tonight?
Good.
Good? I like good. Are you sure? Everybody's like,
I know they're all.
oh, good?
Very good.
Very good. There you go.
Awesome.
There you go. Thank you, man. Yes. Let's get this rolling. We are very excited. My name is Cindy. This is Dan. We own this crazy place here. And we're just thankful that you all came out tonight. We've got 3 freedom candidates here tonight that will be speaking and sharing their stances, their beliefs, their platforms, answering some questions. And Cameron, he is going to be leading this evening and kind of moderating how it all plays out. And so he's got some questions as well that he is going to ask them. And so as we go, he's going to ask all these questions, and then there'll be a time where you all can ask some questions as well. Okay? I'd like to start out with prayer, and then we want to kind of get right to it. So, Dan, you want to?
So you all pray with me, bow your heads. Father, I praise you and I thank you, Jesus, that you give us an opportunity, one, to come together. More importantly, over all of this discussion that we're going to have tonight, I would pray that we're all together under your Son, Jesus' name, that each and every person in this room has accepted you as their personal Lord and Savior, Lord. And if that is the case, then we are one. We're a church, and we can make whatever work because you're over all of it. Mm-hmm. Lord, if someone here doesn't have a relationship with you, Lord, I pray that they would ask us about that. And that would be one of the questions that we can answer. Lord, as we dive into more of a political side of things and where these folks stand on just all the different topics, Lord, I just thank you that the folks actually took time out of their schedule to be here tonight, to do more than just throw words out about what they want or think or what they think they need. They're actually here to ask questions and to educate themselves and to learn Lord, and with that, give us all discernment as to what the next steps are and what that looks like, Jesus. But I pray over all three of these individuals, Jesus, and I pray that you just hold them close to you. Give them the thoughts, the processes, the things that need to happen, Lord, so whatever they do it all for you and for your glory, Lord Jesus. Watch over us this evening. Watch over Cameron as he throws questions out and leads this, Lord, and give him the ideas and the discernment and just the right way to monitor all of this, Lord. We love you. It's in your most precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And just housekeeping, I forgot to say, there's a restroom through this back door to your left-hand side, and then we also have some coffee back here if anybody wants some coffee. Please help yourself to that. So, thank you.
All right. We're just going to lay out the structure. My name is Cameron Graham, a resident of Middletown. I won't even introduce them because that's going to be their first question, but let me give you the structure. We're going to do 45 minutes of moderated discussion. So we have already some prepared questions. It'll be timed, so if it's a 90-second question, you guys are kind of getting there, I'll kind of give you a hint, you guys got to wrap it up. After that 45 minutes, if you guys have questions you want to ask, be thinking of them so we can address our Freedom candidates. We are live streaming on our Facebook group. We have, I think, 3 or 4 watching now. We plan on downloading that and saving it in case you want to use that as a resource to share with other people. The goal tonight is we want to learn more about the candidates. We want to see definitely the similarities, but we really want to see the distinctions between them. So this is not really a formal debate. This is really more of a discussion with interaction. So that is the setup. That's what we're going to be doing this evening. I'll start our first question. It's going to begin with Heather. It's a 90-second. You all are going to have the exact same question. It is introduce yourself and why you decided to run for House District 54.
My name is Heather Carie. I am a resident of Knightstown, Indiana. I've always spent my entire life being involved in politics and involved in policy, wanting to make sure that I was an active citizen. So for the last several years, I have been involved in education, right? Because I'm a homeschool parent. So I care about what happens with our children. I care about parental rights. And so that was my big thing for like a long time, was making sure that parents had their rights and that children were protected. I was always very interested in making sure that our home education was protected in Indiana. Moving forward from that, I met Dr. Daniel Stock. So a lot of you probably know his name and probably aware of him. So before I met him, I was really concerned about what I was seeing with forced mandates that were coming down. I was very concerned about how it seemed that in one fell swoop, our constitutional rights were being robbed from us. And what was very frightening to me is that a lot of people went along with it. And that showed me something. That showed me that people didn't know. There were honestly people who were just not taught and not aware of what it means to be an American, of those wonderful values that we get to have, the wonderful freedoms, the wonderful liberties. My father is a Vietnam veteran, so I spent my entire childhood growing up being taught this is what it is to be a patriot. He would point out to me, you have that because of what I did in Vietnam. You have this because of what my grandfather did in Germany. So to wrap it up, I am the co-founder and the CAO of Cyril and Dorothea's Foundation for Medical Freedom. You guys can look that up on our website and see. I have been fighting for the last year to protect constituents of this state and people globally so that they can have body autonomy and make their own decisions.
Hi, my name is Joshua Gilmore, and I'm a resident of Henry County. I'm right here in Newcastle. And the main reason that I'm running is because of the tyrannical actions that I've been seeing in this last year. From the medical freedoms to Second Amendment rights being infringed upon to any other policy that has been taken away, or policy that has been put in place that has taken away our rights in this country. I'm a nursing major right now and will be graduating in May. And I have worked here for the last 8 years as the manager and owner, basically, of this place, running it, and just performing the daily business traits of that. Part of the reason that I said I was running is because I want to stand for medical freedom. I'm a nurse, and I've seen the direct implications that can have in the medical profession. We've seen so much go wrong in this last couple of years, and I believe that we need to take a stand for that. And part of that starts at the State House. Some of the legislation that's been put forth in our country has put mandates and other things on people that I don't believe is right. And as a nurse, I've seen how the vaccine mandates have reduced the population of nurses more than we already had. We don't have enough of them as it is. So we decided to put mandates into place so that we can get rid of more, because that makes complete sense. And we can do other things to try and reduce the whole population of nurses. And that's one aspect of this, but it's affected many more people. On top of that, I also believe that the rights of everyone are equally important. And part of that would be to protect the unborn, to protect everyone. And that is one of the main things that I'm running for as District 54 representative.
I'm gonna stay sitting. Melissa Meltzer. So, why am I running? God kept pushing me and pushing me and pushing me to get involved, and I'm gonna be honest with you, like I was explaining to my friend here, girl was kicking and screaming. She was. I was going, okay, God, you want me to do what? Do you have any idea what's going on in our state and in our country right now? And so I kind of knew what that was going to entail, and yeah, it was a little overwhelming. So God eventually kept sending me, because I kept asking him, make this clear to me as to what you want me to do. And so he gave me those indications, and I finally came to my husband and explained to him what was going on, because I had this internal dialogue going in my head this whole time. Like, nobody knew I was having this dialogue with God. And I explained to him what exactly God was telling me, and trying to ask him, what do you want me to do? You're the spiritual head of our home. What do you want me to do? I'll do whatever you want me to do. And he says, I'm not making the decision for you. You're gonna have to make it yourself. And so I said, well, if that's the case, then I'm doing what God's telling me to do. So, qualifications wise, I think we've all been pretty active in lots of different things. I was a volunteer at the Pregnancy Care Center for 8.5 years. So, preborn is extremely important to me. I've been very, very involved in that. And so, and just other things, calling our congressmen and women, and emailing and all of that. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Good introduction. Does everybody get their names? Heather Carie, Joshua Gilmore, and Melissa Meltzer.
Please don't call me Carie. You can call me Constitutional Carie, though.
Constitutional Carie. There you go.
It works. Thank you for my last name, dear.
For this next round, my wife will raise her hand instead of me doing it. This is a 60-second question. We're going to start with you, Joshua. It's going to go to all of you. The question is, if you were elected, what would be your top three, just choose three, your top three priorities for this next legislative session?
I believe that my top three priorities would be 1, medical freedom, would be 2, ensuring that the unborn is protected from conception. As soon as the ovum is fertilized with the sperm, from that point on, they need to be protected. And 3rd, I would say Second Amendment rights, because I believe that those are being infringed upon. Indiana is a red flag state that will actually flag people for doing that, and could take the right of some to carry away. Our medical freedoms have been infringed upon. I am, like I said, a direct result of that. I was threatened many times to be kicked out of school. I was threatened to lose my education as a nurse and throw away 3.5 years of my life if I decided not to comply with what they said. I did not comply, nor will I comply, and I will stand strong for the beliefs that I have.
Melissa? Yep.
I'm in agreement, just different order. Constitutional carry, I think, is number 1 for me right now. And then the medical freedom and preborn. So.
Okay. Excellent.
Of course, I'm going to start with medical freedom, because that's like my baby and something that God has given me a great passion for. Even Josh can talk about the COVID clinics that Dr. Stock and I have provided so people can seek education and seek options to be treated for COVID, as well as to seek an exemption to be made exempt for that. My second one is absolutely to put forth legislation that would abolish the barbaric practice of abortion. That needs to be gone. I don't know why that's not gone. I'm very disappointed in some of the things I've seen this session, of course. The last one I think would be, well, in very much constitutional Carie, I also think the third one would be that we need to get our schools in check. Okay, so what the school boards are doing, what they are indoctrinating children with, absolutely has to stop. So I would be putting forth legislation that keeps those schools in check. We need to remove all the pornography from our schools, CRT and SEL. That's it.
Excellent. Well, our next question is going to start with you, Melissa. This is a 60-second question. All of you are professing Christians. So how will you take your Christian faith, your Christian values, how will you use that in the State House?
It's who I am. It's what I do every day. And so I think for me, it's just a matter of, we're called to love. We're called to love people. We're called to love our enemies. And there are going to be probably a lot of people in there that are going to feel like enemies. And so figuring out how best to show Jesus to them in that atmosphere is going to be, I guess, probably one big one. It's going to be in every piece of legislation that I do. I mean, when it comes to, like you said, life at conception, a marriage is between one man and one woman. The Bible is going to be the plumb line for everything that I'm a part of in there.
Thank you. Heather.
I'm going to go to the State House and do what I do in my everyday life, and that is to be led by the Spirit of God. I'm going to stand on His Word, and I will introduce that into every aspect of the State House, just like I do my life. When I worked in a jail ministry with women who were so broken and beaten and just crippled by the system, I got to see opposition, but I also got to see brokenness and what Jesus could do to heal them. And so I will do that there. I'm not afraid of opposition. That doesn't scare me. That brings out something in me that my husband calls the fire. And so I get put up against opposition, and you're going to see me shine. You're going to see me spread the gospel of Jesus Christ like never before.
Josh.
So bringing Christianity to the State House is going to be something that is a difficult task, but as a Christian, we are called to be a light in the darkness, and we need to be professing that to everyone. We need to be standing firm on our morality and not bend when it's put under pressure. The Lord never said that it would be easy to be that light in the darkness, but we're all called to do so as Christians. And as a result of that, I would put everything that I put forth, all legislation, all support for bills, everything would go through what I would like to call, per se, a Jesus filter, I guess. And it would basically be comparing it to the Bible and saying, what in this is different than what I believe biblically? And if it ever misaligns with that or malaligns with that, no matter how good the bill is, I will not support that, because I will always bring it back to my Christian roots.
Thanks. Now we're going to go to some position questions. And some of these I want to try to really press in. If I don't press enough, be thinking of a question you want to ask maybe as a follow-up later on in our time here. We're going to begin with you, Heather. You all mentioned you're all pro-life, would land in that camp, but let me ask the question this way. In our state, nearly 8,000 babies are murdered every single year. Very pointedly, would you support the bill that's been in 6 years in place, gone out? It's called Protection at Conception. It would treat abortion as murder. It would criminalize all abortion in our state. And listen, including children conceived in rape and incest. Would you criminalize all abortion? Heather.
Abortion is murder. There are other options that can be sought out for almost every circumstance. So that needs to be established. It is a barbaric practice.
Josh.
Yes, I would also agree. Life at conception, no matter how it was conceived, all life is precious. All life is worth the same and is exactly equal to one another, and there's no reason that we should be murdering these children. On top of just doing that, though, I would also say adding changes to our foster care system and how the adoption process is done is probably one way that I would say would be very beneficial in addition to criminalizing abortion. We have to give them an alternative for that because they do not want this child. And if we can make the foster care system better in some way, I think that that would help the entire system a lot because now we would have somewhere for those children to go.
I'm in agreement with what they're saying. Those babies, no matter how they come, are gifts from God. They just are. And so, just like you were talking about, those parents, those mothers and fathers who give their children to a loving family through adoption are some of my biggest heroes.
Okay. Well,
Can I add on to, or is that against the rules?
You get
Okay.
3-second add-on.
Okay.
That wasn't in my.
Got it in your finger.
You were under
time. So as a parent of someone who has lost children and had seeked the option of adopting, I think that it's very important for us to develop programs that do encourage that and to make adoption easier in the state and more affordable for everyone. Because there's some people who don't have a lot of money but would have a wonderful, loving home for a child.
You get 5 seconds, Joshua.
Because
you got 10.
I took a little long.
And just one more thing to say in addition to that, I have 5 adopted siblings. Had their mom decided to have an abortion, I wouldn't have 5 of the most beloved people that I have in my life today. So that I can show you I will stand on very firmly. Because if I did not have them in my life would be completely different.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys. Next question, Joshua, we're going to begin with you. You mentioned red flag laws and constitutional carry. Give our group here as broad as you would possibly go with constitutional carry. Can you have a tank? Can you have fully automatic? What does that look like in your world with constitutional carry?
Okay, so in the Second Amendment of the Constitution, you have the right to bear arms. I'm not going to say on the spot, definitely not a tank. I know that. I am going to say that. I don't know, honestly, the extent to which that would go. I think that our laws right now are very infringent upon the rights that we have as American citizens, and I believe that everyone needs the right to be able to have a gun if they have not committed a felony, with the exception of that. There does need to be a background check process. There does need to be a process to determine if you are safe to own a gun, because you've committed a felony shooting someone else. You should not have the chance to buy another gun. But we should make it more free to buy guns for the legal and the correct citizens of this country that are doing it correctly. Because if you are a criminal, you're going to get a gun no matter what. So stopping those that are actually following the laws and following the rules and playing by the rules isn't going to help the system any.
Melissa?
I am not going to profess to be an expert on guns, like all the different types. What I do know is that right is very fundamental to keeping other areas of our government kind of in check, honestly. I mean, if you look at some of the other countries who have taken that right away, and the situation they're in now, their government is completely taking over, and they have no recourse, they have no way to deal with that situation. And I would also add that I understand the background check piece. I'm gonna speak to the licensing piece. Mind you, here in Indiana, it has recently changed somewhat. And I know there are lots of people that are struggling with that whole, about the license piece. I'm a licensed professional, and the only benefit I see from that is I have to pay crazy amounts of money to get continuing education credits, and anybody can make a complaint. My license could be revoked or suspended for any and all reasons. But professionally, it does pretty much nothing for me.
So as far as Second Amendment goes, you guys have already heard me say the constitutional carry thing, so you know that's something I'm passionate about. I'm not sure that the founding fathers would have taken into account tanks, but I know my husband would be very happy if they made that like a thing. We may need to dig more into that as far as some regulations, like Tom's not allowed to like bulldoze down John's house if he gets mad at him. That kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that we should be able to have the freedom to purchase and utilize the things that we want as long as we're using it in a manner which does not break any laws. So I'm absolutely for that. I don't like that I had to pay a large amount of money to get my lifetime carry permit. I don't like the fact that I had to go through a long process to do that. That's a constitutional right. I should have been able to carry my gun and do what I want. So that is where I am with that.
Okay, I want to do a quick follow-up. Rapid fire here. This is just a raise of hands. 3 quickly. How many of you guys believe in background checks? Raise your hand.
Background check.
Okay. License to carry. Do you guys think you should be able to carry the same guns the government carries, as in our military? Raise your hand. Okay. If you guys think of questions to follow up, we can follow up later. Next question is going to be for Melissa. Begin with you. This is very broad. I want you to try to narrow it down. But what would you do legislatively to promote medical freedom in our state? This is a 60-second question.
Promote medical freedom. I would definitely get rid of the mask mandate. I know Congress, our state house has been trying to go around the governor's mandate to end the state of emergency. And so that would be a big one. Getting rid of that state of emergency, getting rid of the mask mandates, the fact that we, there are even blue states right now that are getting rid of their mask mandates, and our state with a Republican governor is still stuck with these mask mandates. So that would be a big one. As well as the fact that just allowing us to make our own decisions medically for ourselves and our families is huge. So,
Heather?
So our foundation, Cyril Dorothia's Foundation for Medical Freedom, has actually worked with a lot of different legislators months before we even got to our current session. One of the bills that we had put amendment language into was HB 1001. Unfortunately, most of our language has now been removed, which would have actually truly protected all of you, okay? Because it would not allow any government, any employer, or any educational institution to know your vaccine status. That would have taken care of so much in one fell swoop, and guess what? They removed it, and they said if it wasn't removed, we're gonna kill this, and there's gonna be nothing, okay? This is what we're dealing with in our current state house. It is appalling. The behavior of our governor right now is very, very disappointing. I understand that he likes all of this federal money that he's getting. I'd really like to know where he's gonna allocate it soon. But there's too many in Senate that are on board with this also. And so it's very disappointing to see what's currently happening. I would propose that.
Joshua?
In terms of medical freedom, I would say that I would start with Governor Holcomb's state of emergency would need to be ended immediately. That would be one of the biggest things, because as soon as that's out of place, other things can then take place after that to help give us more freedoms. I believe in no mask mandates. I believe in no vaccine mandates. I believe in putting legislation forth that would actually protect the people. I went and spoke at the State House in support of HB 1001, and as she said, much of that language that was originally in there was taken out. It's kind of a shell of its original bill, in all honesty. That's not the bill that I went to support. And I would put forth legislation that was very similar, different than what it is, but something that would protect the citizens of Indiana in a way that this bill is no longer going to. and would give everyone the medical autonomy and the bodily autonomy that they deserve and that every American is entitled to.
Heather, this question's going to begin with you. You're up next, right?
I guess
think
so.
you are. Yes. This is a 60-second question. Little civics question here for you. Explain your understanding of the governor's powers versus the powers of the Senate and the House. 60 seconds.
Well, I'm sure that you all know the different branches, the judicial, the legislative, and the executive. I'm not sure our governor understands those branches or what's currently going on. What he's doing right now, the power that he's exerting, these mandates after mandates after mandates, which we all know are rooted in money, is completely and totally outside of the sphere of what he should be doing. The power should be in the House and in the Senate, truly, I believe. And he should not be able to be this tyrant that he is currently being. So that's very concerning to me. I would like to make it to where he can no longer do any more mandates and have that power at all. And I know some people are against that because they're like, no, it's the executive branch. He should be able to do whatever he wants. Okay, he's doing it. They're doing it. How is it working out for us? We have to retool things. We have to change things so that we can have an even power spread.
Joshua.
As she said, our country is founded on the three judicial, executive, and then legislative branches. And our executive branch in this state of Indiana has taken power into his own hands. He has now renewed the state of emergency 22 or 23 times. One of those two, sorry, I can't remember the exact number. But he's done it either 22 or 23 times, and he has taken the power into his own hands. Our legislative body needs to have the ability to limit that power, because I believe that as the executive branch, he has that power given to him. So in a state of emergency, he should be able to say, okay, I need to do this, this, and this, and that can happen. But that can only happen for so long before he would then need to, I guess this is where the legislation comes in. The legislation I would want to put forth is something to the extent of he can only have it for X amount of time, and then he needs to go to the Senate and the House and ask them for this power. They would then give him the ability to continue doing this, or they would take that away. And it would be something that would be then put back in the checks and balances and would bring the power back to the people. Because you are voting in people like me, like one of us maybe, or anyone else that's in the House or the Senate that will then be able to protect the people because you are the direct voice to them.
Melissa?
Well, there's not a whole lot I can add to that. I'm thinking kind of on a broader scale when you think of the person sitting in the White House right now and all the executive orders that came into being at the very beginning, and that kind of, it's kind of a foreshadowing of what we've been dealing with here in our state, and how our current governor has just, run completely off the rails and, would you say tyrannical? I think that's very accurate. Mm-hmm. Yep. And there needs to, there's checks and balances in that system, and they need to be used.
Good. Well, this is our last question for all three of you. Then I have an individual question for each of you. So continue to think of what you guys would like to ask. Joshua, we'll start with you. It's a two-part question, 60 seconds. What do you believe differentiates? Guys, we're seeing a lot of similarities, right, between all the candidates. So the question here is what differentiates you from the other candidates up here? And then part two is what differentiates you from the other Republican candidates? Because there's 8 total in our district right now. So go ahead, Joshua.
Okay, so rapid fire, here we go. So I believe that I hold the same Christian beliefs that I do. There are going to be very few differences between the ones that are sitting here today. I would say that if not us, the other ones are definitely more liberal. I am going to differentiate between myself and them right away. They're going to put forth policies that are not as conservative as the ones that I would do. I would argue that I'm probably one of the most conservative people anyone could ever meet, and I will keep that going into the State House. I would like to say that no matter the outcome of whatever this is, we need to stand behind the one that does get in, so that we can just go against the Democrat in November, because the liberal policies that they would put forth would be even worse than any of the ones that could be done by any rhino in the Republican Party now.
That's right.
Melissa?
So I'm thinking like on the logistics side, because we have and this is all, between all of us, but also the 8 candidates we have now. I think there was one at the end of the very last day. So we have 6 here in Henry County. We have 2 in Rush County. And logistically, that will split the votes in Henry County every which direction. Because there are only 2 candidates in Rush County, that actually puts us logistically in a better scenario of getting more votes, if that makes sense. Ideologically, we're pretty similar, and I don't know you guys well enough to know what the differences are. I mean, you're a guy. I'm definitely not a guy.
I'm one of the 2.
So I know that at least that difference, but I think, Heather, you've got kiddos at home. I'm an empty nester, and so I know we have that kind of in not in common. So yeah.
And then Heather.
I will agree that we have a lot of same ideology. I think a lot of that is just spurred from the fact that we are believers in Christ, and that's wonderful. I'm glad they're here. What differentiates me from them, or even the rest of the group, is the work that I have been doing on behalf of constituents of Indiana as well as globally. So part of our movement has reached as far as China and Australia, and our mission has been to educate and empower and protect individuals. My husband can attest to this. I get phone calls every single day with people contacting me saying, I'm sick with COVID, I need help, my O2 sats are dropping really bad, I'm scared, I don't want to go to the hospital because they're killing people. And so I facilitate treatment for them. I have doctors that are all across the nation, and they do telehealth, and I help get these people treatment, and it has been an absolute honor in my life to know that I have saved people's lives. God has brought people to us, and it's just the most amazing way, because sometimes it's not so easy to find me, you know? So that would be, I think, the work that I have done on behalf of the constituents already in this state, asking for nothing in return.
All right. Then this is our last question. It's going to be an individual question for each of you. 60 seconds. We're going to begin with you, Melissa. Given you live in Rush County, how do you plan to get support that you need here in Henry County, which is the biggest part of the district?
Door knock, door knock, door knock. Lots of it. That would be a big one. I actually, when I was doing the volunteer work at the pregnancy center in Shelby County for all those years, my manager of that office, or the director, her and her husband actually live here. And so their son has a church here. They're all pastors. Like, she's a pastor, he's a pastor, and their son. So they all have, and then they help with the guest house. So they run the guest house and do all that. And so that would be a help, I think. But again, I think the door knocking and getting involved and maybe even attending some of the local meetings and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Joshua, this question's for you. Some are going to look at you and say, Josh, you're just too young. I mean, you're going to be 22 by the time of the election. The legal requirement's 21, so you're good to go there. But how do you overcome that hurdle, though? When people look at you and say, he's no experience. How do you respond to that?
Well, I would respond to that with those that have had experience, have had their way in our country now for, I'm going to just say the last 30 years, but it's since the founding of our country. And I know that there is a part in the Bible that says, do not look down on you because you are young. And both of those things are going to kind of come together at this. I may not have the actual experience, but at points in my time, I've taught myself how to be an electrician. I've taught myself how to be a plumber. I've taught myself how to weld, how to build, how to do everything. I'm a very hands-on hard worker. And I believe that just because I don't know how to do it, doesn't mean I can't. I'm going to put the effort and the time in to make sure that I know what I'm doing so that I can best run for the people of Indiana, District 54 in Indiana. And I truly believe that I would be able to do very good things to change what's going on and change the trajectory of our country through that.
Thank you. And then Heather. You're a dedicated homeschool mom. You're very active in Dr. Stock's movement. Some would say you just have too many balls in the air. Explain how you're going to manage all this, one, going into the election, and then also how you're going to do it during legislative session.
So I have a vast network of people who volunteer and help for us. And so while I say, yeah, I'm the co-founder of our organization and I handle the day-to-day, yes, I do, with the help of a ton of other patriots from all over our state that are helping. And so I get that concern. I understand that people are like, how are you going to juggle this? But I am a person who can definitely handle more than one task at a time. If you want to ask that man back there, he can tell you what a multitasker, energizer bunny drives him crazy. It's 11:30 and I'm still doing stuff at night type of person. And so I wouldn't be entering into this if I wasn't being led by God to do it, number one. But then number two, if I didn't think that I could truly serve you to the best of my abilities and serve you well.
Excellent. Good job, all of you. Thank you very much. Well, I hope at this time you guys have thought of some questions you want to ask our candidates. So if you have a question, if you could raise your hand, what I'd like you to do, and it's going to be awkward, you got to stand up, and I want you to address the person you want to ask the question to. If you want it to be for all of them, that's fine. We'll offer a 30-second response for all. But if you want it to be a particular person, they'll get 60 seconds, and then 30 seconds follow-up for either of the two other individuals. My wife's raising her hand.
I don't want to make you all have to walk forward, but maybe for sound it might work better.
Or just stand and project.
Yeah, just make sure you speak loudly when you ask your question, or
So,
if you want to repeat it. If it's
Who's
loud.
the first brave soul? Yes, please stand up and project.
Okay, so my name is Tina. I've got serious questions about the overreach of what our politicians have done to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep hearing, well, then we'll do this and limit this. Are you guys, I know there's limited time as far as years for you guys to be able to accomplish a lot. What about limiting, removing the things? Like not even jacking with, okay, we'll give them this and this. Removing a lot of what is already there. Take it from them, okay? We've allowed very subtly a lot of things to be given to them power-wise. Remove that from law. Remove a lot of that. So if that's anything you guys have thought about.
So Tina, is that for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, 30 seconds. We'll start here with Heather.
Yeah, we got to go through there with a Hoover and just clean up the absolute mess these politicians have made, because that's what a lot of them are. They're politicians. They're not there to serve you. Okay, a lot of them, they're there because they want to have a position of authority, or they want a ladder climb and eventually become governor. Let's just be honest, folks, okay? This stopped being a game a long time ago about serving your constituents and started being about where I can get money, where I can get influence, and where I can get power. So that's absolutely something I want to do. But another thing, if you see on my website, is I want to establish term limits. So you only get to be in there for a certain amount of time, and then you get to go back home and be a wonderful citizen and enjoy those laws that you created. Isn't that a nice idea?
Can you plug your website? What is it?
It's www.heathercarie.com. My last name is spelled C-A-R-I-E.
Yeah, thank you. Joshua.
I'm going to bounce off of a lot of what she just said. Term limits, things like that. I also would like to say that in addition to that, a lot of what's happened in the last 2 years has been in the form of mandates, so not laws. So there is no actual written law, no written policy or anything else to put forward and actually execute that. There's nothing that they can say that is very law affirmative. There's nothing that they've actually written. It's just a policy, or it's just something they put in place, but they've never actually put it through the legislative bodies. So because of that, there needs to be laws made to counteract those mandates and ensure that they can't just be allowed to run with those, because it needs to go through our judicial process. As we said, House, Senate, and then the governor all need to see it before it can become an actual law, because that's just part of what's happened in this last year. So we do need to get rid of some laws, and we would need to eliminate those. But on top of that, we need to just put those laws into place, because what's happening isn't even a law. Mask mandates, vaccine mandates, etc. There's no law. It's a mandate.
Can I speak off of what he said? Is that
Cool.
allowed? Or
Cool.
go
Can we
after
let-
Melissa?
Yeah,
and
Melissa,
then-
you can, yeah.
So I see the overreach in one major area is government spending and taxes. And so I think that's where I would hit, is getting rid of some of those tax laws that we have, because I don't know about you, but I feel like we're taxed to the hilt, and I feel like the government has no, again, checks and balances when it comes to spending our money. Like, they just write their little wish list, and we're supposed to, and they sneak them in bills that we don't even know about, and then we're footing the bill, and so I think that's a big issue.
Heather, go ahead.
So one thing that he said about mandates and that they're not laws, that's right, isn't it? It's not a law. So why is it where we currently are that so many mandates are being treated as law? Why are we tolerating it as a society? Why are our policymakers, including our governor, acting like what he says that is a mandate is a law, and then putting language in that says that there will be repercussions if you don't go by my mandate, and treating it as a law? These are all things that need to be changed.
And then in terms of what she had said, the taxation of people, we've been in a surplus in Indiana, not just this year, but I believe it was last year as well, and I can't speak as to years before that. So the tax laws can be changed, because we can take money away from the government at this point, because we don't need it all. If we're giving people money back in form of tax breaks in April, we don't really need that. So we should just be reducing the taxes in the first place.
Yeah, Steve, stand and address who you would like to.
I think you guys are doing a great job of articulating the problem. And the problem is there's a system of bureaucracy that goes beyond people that are good people that are elected, and they go there and they get caught up in that system. And I'm just curious what you think of as a strategy to try to be influential enough to get some things done, but you're going to have to go against a lot of grain. So what would your strategy be to try to build a coalition, or how do you attack that?
Josh, we'll start with you.
I'd say that one of the best ways to do that be to basically, you're going to have to uproot everything that's there. And that's going to be very difficult, because a lot of those people don't want that to happen. So we're going to need to make that coalition, like you were saying, with the House representatives that are willing to make a change. And I believe that a lot of people are running for their seats, and the establishment party of the Republicans and the Democrats for themselves. But the Republican Party specifically is going to have a lot of pushback from the constituents. There's going to be a lot of people running in this election. We see that. There's 8 people running for ours. There's 6, 7 people running for other ones. We're going to be getting a lot of conservative voices in there that are fed up with what's been going on. And I believe that we're going to be able to work hand in hand with those people. Maybe not everyone, but I do believe we'll have constituents that we'll work with well.
Melissa.
The Bible says that bad company corrupts good character. So I think one of my main ones would be surrounding myself with people who already have that good character. Kurt Knisley, Representative Kurt Knisley, Representative John Jacob, they've already been bucking the establishment, just the 2 of them, and being disowned by the caucus, which really isn't a bad thing at this point, but they have dealt with the bullying. They've already paved that path for us, so that when we come in, at least in the House, it will be one of those that will have that support in there already, because they've kind of blazed that trail for us. The Senate is going to be, it's going to take maybe a little bit of time to get the Senate changed over, but the House is coming.
So definitely want to touch on the fact that I do believe if we are led by God, He can handle a lot of those situations, okay? Having said that, one of the absolute wonderful benefits of being in the foundation that I am in is that I've been working with legislators and senators for the last several months. And so I'm not going to be going into a situation where they're like, who is this person? What are you and what are you doing? I'm going to be going into a situation where people are going to be like, Heather, you made it to the State House. Thank you. We're glad that you're here. And so I think that that's something really important to establish. And like she had said, like John Jacob and Kurt Knisley, and there's a ton more, Chris Jeter, there are good senators. They're not all our enemies. And if we band together, then real change happens.
Next question. Stand and project. Who's this for?
What this? I really want to hear from all three on this one. Okay. I think one area that has not been attacked severely at this point is homeschool rates. Indiana is an excellent state to homeschool in right now. And I do believe we are under the gun with that. What are your plans, if any, if this is even on your radar, to protect homeschoolers?
You're looking at me, but I don't know if you want me to go first.
Well,
The school side.
it's up to Cam.
Well, so clarify the specific question, please.
Right now,
Uh-huh.
we don't have a lot of red tape, so to speak, to homeschool our family. We don't have to jump through a lot of hoops and prove that we're doing our job. We just get to homeschool our families. So, the way I see it, government schools are a way to control the next generation. So, homeschooling, they can't control.
Oh,
So, how are we going to protect that? Because I do believe that is threatened.
so you're worried that it's coming?
Yes, can we be proactive before it's taken instead of reactive?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And that would be pushing forward on legislation to preserve that right as a parent. So, yeah.
Heather?
How many, because your guys' kids are young, so how many years have you homeschooled?
Well, 3 almost,
Okay,
but
so-
preschool, I mean,
Okay.
preschool,
Well, hey,
first
no,
grade,
that still
kindergarten.
counts. So I have a couple wonderful 12-year-olds. That curly headed girl back there is one of them. And we have home educated the entire time, so for a very long time. I've always been a mentor in our community, an advocate for home education. And I'm happy to say what Amik said, that we have wonderful freedoms in home education in Indiana. It's because we have had warriors fighting to keep it that way and to protect our quality of life and the freedoms that we have. If we didn't have organizations like Indiana Association of Home Educators or Homeschool Legal Defense who will protect people when they're attacked, we wouldn't have what we have right now. So that is going to be one of the very important things that I will take to the State House, is that you keep your hands off of private education.
Joshua?
So there's currently legislation going before the House, and this does not directly pertain to the homeschooling community. I'll get to that in just a second. But starting with the parent choice is the biggest thing. If we can give the parents more freedom through the legislation that's happening right now in the State House, or even future legislation, that's where we need to start. Then allowing school choice. And then promoting homeschooling. Putting legislation forth that would protect homeschooling. I was homeschooled all 12 years of high school. I never went to a public school. And I believe that homeschooling has many, many benefits. I would stand and protect that as hard as I could, because I would not be where I am today. I would not know what I know today if it were not for homeschooling. Homeschooling has benefited my life and has been one of the biggest blessings that has ever come to me. So I would do all I could to protect that.
Thank you. Any other questions? I know there's more. You just have to raise your hand
Just go for
And
it.
project your
Go
voice.
for it.
and project. Thank you. Yes. State your name, where you're from.
Oh, yeah.
Rob
We didn't do
Simmons
that.
From Newcastle.
Okay.
Uh,
And who's this question for, Rob?
all of you. It's about the abortion issue. I've got close family, not Heidi, but who would argue that if you take away legal abortion, then the illegal abortion would be a lot more dangerous, right? The mother, or the life of the mother in danger. So how would you argue back to that? The other part of that question is, you talked about not drawing the line at rape, but what about the life of the mother? When there's a danger there, where do you stand on that?
And we're going to start with Heather.
So the whole thing with, one of the saddest things that I see with women who go to have an abortion is they feel that they don't have any other options. A lot of these women don't have any education and different options. They're not presented those. I don't care what these clinics are saying that they provide for people. They are not advocating for people to not abort, okay, because they make way too much money to do it. And so when I was doing the jail ministry, I dealt with some of this. And we have to fix the system of girls that are being objectified to begin with and are getting put into these situations where they do become pregnant. And if they do become pregnant, we need to make sure that there are systems in place to where they can have supportive care, help them find homes for their children, and help them through their pregnancies, encouraging these women.
Okay, Joshua?
I believe that we also need to be talking to these women, encouraging them and helping them through this. But this is where a slight bit of a medical background does come into play and help me a little bit with this answer, is that there's a difference between spontaneous abortions and chosen abortions. And there's also, now we can closely monitor a mother. We can deliver a baby at 22 to 25 weeks and have that baby live. That mother really won't need to put her life in danger for a long period of time. I'm not saying for all, but I'm saying for a good majority of people, that mother will not need to put themselves in danger for more than 22 to 25 weeks. We deliver that baby and then put them in a NICU. And that baby will probably come out of there with pretty good results, most of the time, I'm going to say. Maybe not all the time, because it never is 100%. But we do need to clarify between that. We need to eliminate abortion altogether, start rape, incest, as soon as conception occurs. But we also need to be clarifying that in our modern day today, we can care for those patients a lot closer to the time of conception. And if that mother's in danger, we can help them right away.
Melissa?
I think I would first educate the person on the fact that legal abortions aren't as safe as they appear to be.
That's right.
And then the other part of it, so my previous husband was a widower when I met him, and his wife had cancer. She, it came back, and it was in her uterus. Because of the chemo and the radiation that she was on, they said she couldn't get pregnant, but she got pregnant. And again, that cancer was in the uterus. Well, the doctor told her that they needed to take the baby because the pregnancy, as the pregnancy would further along, the uterus wouldn't grow with the baby in it, and it would potentially kill the baby and or kill her. And so they took the baby. That's the decision that they had made at that point. And what ended up happening was that I think depression just set in, and she gave up because the cancer came back. And exactly what those doctors spoke over her, that baby and her, they both died. Mm-hmm. And so God's the only one who knows what would have happened if she would have carried it to term. So.
Okay. All right. Any other?
Can I just add really quickly?
Please, yeah.
We have people in our society that are like the Tim Tebows of the world, and his parents told him to abort. He's one of the biggest sports icons in our country that stands for Christianity, stands for pulling women and young people out of the sex slave industry and everything. He's done amazing things. We cannot be the ones that control the life of a baby. That is God's to control.
Can I speak?
Please, yeah.
I think that just really gives a good example of how, despite how you may be conceived into this world, God has a plan for you because He knows you before you're knitted together in your mother's womb. And so I think if we could carry that type of a theology to our youth, to these women, and help them to understand how precious these children are, that would just really promote so much change.
Let me just offer one comment and then we'll get into more questions. 6 years in a row, there's been a bill to criminalize abortion. Supermajority in the House. They've never done anything about it. The bill never gets heard. So if these are consistent answers, this is what you want in the State House. You want people that want to criminalize the murder of children. So appreciate the answers there. What other questions do we have?
I have a follow-up.
Yeah, Rob.
Question on, one of the questions that was asked was about, well, I guess one of the comments that was made was about the legislation that the meat gets pulled out of it.
Mm-hmm.
What can, this is for everybody, I guess, what actions can you take to keep that from happening, to add the meat back into it? And that's my question.
Who wants to?
Joshua, start with you. Yes.
Okay. We are being elected by the people, for the people, to represent the people in the House of Representatives. And I, as well as they, will probably be there to stand for whatever we are elected on, and that is belief in liberty and justice, everything we've been speaking about today. But part of what I want to get at is is that we are humans and we can only do so much. We are going to present this legislation. We are in there for 2 years and we're going to do our very best to try and promote that legislation. But I believe that the people of the United States have become complacent a lot of the time. And we are elected to be your representatives and we want to be in there doing what's right and doing what's just for the people. But if we don't have the support of everyone around us, it's never going to be heard. If we would have had half the state of Indiana, which I believe probably would want to make abortion illegal, maybe not that many, but a good portion of Indiana wants to make abortion illegal. If everyone that said that was willing to call the State House and actually make a difference in terms of calling their legislators, we would hear these bills. These bills would go through. So it's not, all the blame cannot go on the representative. A lot of the time it can. I'm not saying that. But we also need to get the constituents involved in what we're doing. We need to make them believe in what we are doing.
Melissa?
Yeah, I think that's important, that holding our representatives and our senators accountable. That's one of those things with Kurt Nisley and John Jacob being in there together now, in the House, that they can actually ask for roll call, so we know how people are voting. But to your question, I believe the process is wherever it starts, whether it's in the Senate or the House, it'll go to the other one if it's not killed there. If they make any amendments, if they take anything out, it's still gonna go back to the other house to be able to talk about. So really, I mean, we have that opportunity to try and get that stuff addressed, like the second go around, if that makes sense. That is, again, if it's not killed in the process, so.
By a raise of hands, how many of you are following any bills right now? Right? How many of those bills that maybe you guys are following have you seen killed? A ton, right? Okay. So his question about amendment language, one of the things that we can do is we can get in there and we can work with people like Kurt Nisley and John Jacob and others who are like-minded. We can say, guess what? We're all going to create a bunch of bills and we're all going to have the same legislation. And then while we're working with these representatives, we need to be working with senators who are like-minded, saying, these bills are coming this way. Will you sponsor these with us? And will you help them to get through and not become inactive, killed, and get them passed into different committees and then get them approved? And that's how you can promote positive change. If we can get enough people on our side, and I do believe there are senators on our side. I don't want to leave tonight with that impression, senators bad. If we can get everyone working together, I do truly believe that we could get some legislation that's not gutted. I spent months of my life working with Dr. Stock and different organizations, working on different bits of legislation. It had some beautiful amendment language in it that would have protected you all, and it's now 90% been removed. So I understand your frustration.
We have about 10 more minutes for questions before their closing comments. What other questions do we have? Linda. Stand up, and who would you like to address?
All of you.
Okay.
And I'd like to know if you've thought about election integrity and how to protect our votes so that we're voting for who we think we're voting for. They're not being changed by machines. Is there such a thing as paper ballots? I've heard no for Indiana. What do you think?
Melissa, we'll start with you.
I actually just sat in on a meeting last week about election integrity, specifically for Indiana, and an organization that has been going through some of the different counties, and the statistically significant turnout rate that we had that was impossible. And so Kurt Nisley was trying to get some of that put in. Like, he was wanting paper ballots, for us to go back to paper ballots for at least 2 years, because a lot of the issue are the machines. That's where a lot of that, as well as, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dinesh D'Souza. He's got a movie coming out, 2,000 Mules. I'm just gonna say, I'm excited about it, and when I have the chance to watch it, I'm gonna watch it. But yeah.
Heather.
We all know our voting system is corrupt, right? I mean, we've all seen the videos from Dinesh where they've got these mules and they geo-track them and they're dumping ballots here. And we've all seen the videos of the suitcases and everything. We know our system is broken. We know what Dominion did. How many of you stayed up until a ridiculous late time on the election watching the data dumps? Thank you, nerds. I love you all. So we know that it's broken. We need to go back to paper ballots. We need to go back to where there's not the absentee ballots like there was. We need to have a organization set into place. And I speak more of this on my website actually, but we need to do and adopt what Florida has now done, where there's a separate division dedicated entirely to integrity, to where we have something overseeing that, and if the local prosecutors won't do their job and take care of that, then that power needs to be taken and sent to the Attorney General, and that will fix a lot of this, at least in our state.
Joshua?
In terms of election integrity, I don't need to repeat what has been said in that there has been issues with that. Part of what needs to be done is we do need to implement a full voter ID. That needs to be in place across the board. I'd like to see it across the whole country, but that probably won't happen in a lot of states. But at least here in Indiana, we do need that, and we need to make sure that we're cracking down on that, checking that, verifying it many times over, because you cannot have people illegally voting. They need to be citizens of the country, and that's the only people that need to be voting as well. So changes need to be made in that sense. We also need to eliminate mail-in voting, and change the way absentee ballots are given to people. There are people that need absentee ballots, those in the military, those in certain circumstances that are too old to leave their house. Very, very few circumstances actually needed absentee ballot. Because if you can go out for groceries, you can go out to vote. So there's no reason that you should be doing anything that could possibly compromise an election in terms of that. And then, we don't really have a whole lot of legislation to prosecute those that are caught with that. Things need to be changed, but if we don't prosecute, that's a big deal. A slap on the wrist is going to do nothing. So we need to make sure we're actually upholding the laws that we have and then prosecuting those that go in violation of that.
Next question. Sean.
Sean DeCoe. This is for all of you. I'm kind of curious as to understanding that this cannot be implemented necessarily on legislative level, but I want to know more about your core beliefs on the 10th Amendment and how the state interacts with the federal government, and where do you see right now that we ought to have implemented more of the state rights concerns in our country, and where we're at today with that.
Start with you, Heather.
I'm 41 years old. And our federal government has been overreaching for far too long. The 10th Amendment is very, very crucial and important, and we need to stay, and the federal government needs to stay in those perimeters that the founding fathers designed for them to stay in. I don't know, for me as a representative, how much I can do on the state level, but I will certainly advocate that we need to take care of our things here, state level, and that this state and the governor bodies should be the one dictating to us, not the federal government.
Joshua?
There are certain laws that just are going to be unavoidable. When the federal government puts them into place, we aren't going to have a whole lot of a choice. But the Indiana government can put statements out, can put legislation forward that would challenge that. We need to help support our Attorney General in that sense, because that's really the only way that that's going to be accomplished. The state can put forth legislation, but if the federal government has put something out to ban that, it's only going to do so much. So that comes back to us again. I have been guilty of this because I haven't called for everything that I believe is wrong. We need to be calling our state representatives, our Attorney General, our governor, our state representatives in Indiana and in DC to be supporting the things that we believe in, because if we don't do that, nothing is going to be able to change. So we need to build a hope in the people again, that I hope that I can do, and that I hope that others can do. That would be making them willing to want to be involved in politics again, because without that, the federal government is running rampant, and we need that change. But that can only really occur if we can get everyone involved.
And Melissa?
From the founding of our country, the government wouldn't even be around if it hadn't been for the states creating it. And so I think there's an important piece to learn there. And I was listening actually on the way here, they were, I didn't like the imagery. They were making the government the father or dad and the states the children. And I'm sitting there thinking, why are the children footing the bill for whatever the father's doing? But I didn't like the imagery. Let's just put it that way. But like Governor DeSantis from Florida and the governor in Texas, have they been bucking the federal government? You better believe it. And thank God, is all I'm gonna say. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Look what happened when our attorney generals came together.
Right.
They came together, and we saw in Mississippi and in Oklahoma that they came together and they eliminated the CMS and the OSHA mandate for a portion of time. Now that did go to the Supreme Court, and it was further ruled upon later. But when the states came together, Indiana's Attorney General, Todd Rokita, did this, and many others did as well. I believe there were 18, 19. I don't remember the exact number, but there were a lot of attorney generals that came together because their constituents called them, because they went through and they actually went through the process of being an American citizen and making sure that they're making their voices heard. So it can happen, and it does happen. It's just really hard to do at this point.
And our last question. Someone make it a real zinger.
All right, I'll ask it.
All right, right here.
Okay.
She's got one.
Oh, then you go right ahead. I don't want to say anything.
Dan, if you have a real zinger, we'll make it. Okay.
Right ahead.
I would like to ask all of you, how do you feel about term limits?
Yeah. We'll start with Joshua.
I am in favor of term limits. People have been in there for too long. Our current representative of District 54 has been in there for 26 years.
Yeah, I know.
People shouldn't be in government for that long, because then they just get comfortable and complacent in their job and no longer feel like they're representing the people. Oh, I don't even need to try to run for my position anymore. Why? Because I have it easily. I'm in a Republican district. I win 7,000 to 1,000 or 2,000 in this district. I have no competition whatsoever because I'm the incumbent. So if we put term limits in place, that would help eliminate that incumbency. It would actually give people the chance to run, and new people, fresh blood in that system, so that we can get these new legislation and the new policies put forth and actually change what's going on. Because if we don't cycle everything through, it's just going to be the same old group of people that are in there doing nothing. They haven't done anything forever now. And our country's in the state that it is today because of that.
Melissa?
I'm gonna see things a little differently than that. I actually don't believe in term limits. I think if somebody's doing a good job, why get them out? But it's also the fact that those people are still able to run against someone. They just have to work a little harder at it. And so I think that healthy competition is what keeps whoever the incumbent is. If they know somebody's coming for them, they don't have to get comfortable in that position, you know. And so it's going to keep them sharper and keep them working harder, because they're going to know that their constituents are paying attention to them and what they're doing and what they're not doing. So.
And then Heather.
I am for term limits, as I had spoke to those ladies earlier about. I think that we probably should have a max of 12 years of service. They both had kind of spoke about incumbents, okay? So that's one of the reasons why I want to do term limits, because I bet every single one of you can think of a certain incumbent who was reelected, who shouldn't be serving, and they were only reelected because of the broken system that we are currently dealing with and the amount of money that they have. If you don't know who Danny Niederberger is, please look him up. He was going to run against Todd Young, and now they are probably going to make it to where Danny cannot run. There's a perfect example of why we need term limits, get some of these people out of the way, and let fresh blood come in to serve.
Great. Yeah, follow up?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So it kind of, because this is a difference, and I didn't know we had this beforehand, but the policy that would be really good in my opinion is there are many open seats that are never filled. And people always want to run for the fancy president, woohoo, the governor, yay, state senate, state, whatever it is. But they don't want to do the lesser jobs. Well, if they're working for the people, why does it matter? So there are many jobs open, and I think that each individual seat should have its own term limits dependent on what it is. State representative, this many. State senate, this many. Federal state senate, this many. It just depends on what job you're in. The governor already has 2 limits. You have the representatives and the senators around him.
If I could,
Yeah.
is it okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
This kind of really is gearing in my mind something that I'm very passionate about, and we know, like in this district, that our voting results are somewhat, okay, they're disappointing, okay? There is a lot of apathy. There's a lot of people who just don't understand the voting systems. I was just speaking to my consultant earlier, and he said you would be so shocked at the amount of ballots that are done incorrectly, and some people will vote for like the same position too many times, and they're just discarded. And so we're now living in a society where people don't know how to participate in our election process. We're living in a system where voters don't understand their value and how important they are to fix this broken system. And so one of the things that I want to do is I want to bring voting machines into schools. I want to teach the youth. I want to excite them. You know how they would always say, go get out the vote and do this and that and do the concerts and all that stuff. We need to do something like that here. We need to do that for the youth, but then we also need to just get everyday people empowered and educated to understand you are a vital part of this process. Whether you seek to do a precinct committeeman or a state delegate or a councilman or anything, these are all so important that those seats are filled.
Now, as we wrap up, here's what I want to do. I'll offer 60 seconds for each of you to make a closing statement, maybe something impactful you want people to remember about you. We're going to start with you, Melissa. As I can see your wheels are turning, you're thinking about what you're going to say. Well, you're on the spot, so go ahead. 60 seconds.
Impactful. I mean, you guys gave your qualifications at the beginning, and so I guess I can give a little background there. I love Jesus. I'm a small business owner. I'm a Christian counselor. I love what I do. And I am telling you right now that God calling me to this, part of that was me giving up the thought of giving up my business, my private practice, and my clients. I told God, I said, if that's what it takes, I'm willing to do that. And so I want you guys to know, I'm all in. Like, I'm all in, whatever this looks like.
Thanks. Heather, how about you?
So I've already spoke before about the work that I've done with the foundation and how I have been working for the last couple of years to just help promote change and education. For the last year, I have actually worked for this foundation, and I have not been paid one dime. I did this because I know that God, because He told me to go serve. So I started doing this because I knew that I was being called to serve to help protect people. I saw a need. God put me with Dr. Stock, and then next thing we know, it's birth. So we started with the COVID centers, which I spoke to you guys about, helping to protect people. Some of the greatest moments were these little kids would come walking in, and they were like wanting a mask letter so that they didn't have to wear that mask in school anymore. I go through in my mind these images of just the victory after victory after victory and how many people that we've helped. And now I'm so excited that we in Morristown will be opening one of the first of its kind in the nation medical center. We will provide care for little Johnny with the strep throat, but we will also provide prevention, early treatment options, and acute care treatment for COVID-19. So we're going to keep people out of hospitals and save more lives.
Joshua.
So I will be working as a nurse, and this means that I can choose my hours completely. PRN, I don't even need to hardly work sometimes because of that. So I would be completely dedicated to this job while I'm in that position. I also want everyone to know, we had our business shut down here. I was fired from a job. I was almost eliminated from my school multiple times. At that school, the job that I was fired from, it was because I chose not to wear a mask in a room that there was not even a mask requirement in. It was just her choosing to decide to hold her policy and her power over my head. And that was the only reason. I have a lot to lose because I will probably never get hired at a hospital after running for this seat. Do I care? Not one bit. Because I want to do what's best for the people. And I truly believe that I can make a difference. The Bible says, don't look down on me because you are young. The Bible used Esther and Daniel and so many people when they were young. I didn't want to misquote it because I thought I'd go this way. But in 1 Samuel 16:11 it says, there remains yet the youngest. In Jeremiah 1:7 it says, but the Lord said, do not say, I am only a youth. For to all who I send, you shall go. For whatever I command, you shall speak. These things are very, very impactful in my life. And because of what I've seen, because of what I've done, because of what I've been through, there's a fire inside of me that wants to fight all of this and help everyone that I possibly can.
Thank you. Can we give our candidates a hand? Well, I appreciate your guys' time coming out. I have one announcement, then I'll hand it back over to the Gilmores. There's going to be another, it's probably a more formal debate. This was fairly formal. Like, I dressed up, right? No, Nate Lamar is actually doing a debate as well for the Republican Party, and it's going to have, I believe, all 8 candidates. We wanted to showcase what we thought was the liberty movement in our area. These are our liberty candidates. Perhaps the other candidates are. We'll see. But our vetting, this is what we've come up with, and I think they did a really good job. So come out for that. There'll be more information on the Facebook group in regards to when that is. But that should be some good additional info for everybody. Please, yeah, then you can come up after that, please.
Well, I just wanted to say, I did bring cards. I know that we discussed a lot of things, but my business cards actually have my website that was just recently launched on it. So if you guys really want to know more about me and everything, that's a great resource. And then I do have my Facebook page as well. So, and then if you do like what I said and you're interested in everything, there's sign-up sheets for volunteers and yard signs over there as well.
I don't have a question, but I have a little statement, if I could.
Mr. Ed, go ahead.
I have had to talk to a lot of legislators, and most of them, I would certainly prefer any one of you 3 to the ones I've spoken to.
That's good. That's a good thing.
Thank you. Thank you. And he's one of the county commissioners, just in case no one, or if you don't know who he is, Ed Tarantino is one of the county commissioners. So thank you. Thank you for joining us and being a part and supporting us. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
So you spoke, I know you have a Facebook page as well. And a website. And Josh, you have a Facebook page as well, so you can find them. And I know I've kind of searched, so I know you guys have your information and details and things like that out there. So I highly encourage you to go and find them on Facebook. Like their pages, ask them questions, all of those kinds of things. I truly appreciate each and every one of you for coming out tonight. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cameron, for you did a fine job, sir. Thank you for putting on your coat tonight. Thank you, Nick. And we are facing a time in our country that we have to really know what's going on here. I have to say that I'm a little disappointed in the turnout tonight. I truly appreciate each and every one of you joining us. But I have to say that the information has gone out to 216 or whatever people. It's gone out to another, 80 on email. We've put it out on Henry County. We've put, and you all have shown up. And I appreciate each and every one of you, that you find it important enough to take time out of your schedules to come out because you have a heart and a passion to find out who may be your next representative. And that's what this movement, that's what, when we met up with Cameron at a freedom conference back in May or whatever it was, we said, we really have to focus on what the next candidate looks like. Candidates for the House, candidates for sheriff, candidates for commissioner, candidates for council. That is so important to know this information. And so I appreciate each and every one of you coming out because you obviously have a heart and a passion to know what's going on. Our future, what's going on is crazy. And so we really need to be standing strong and knowing what people, what they believe and what they're going to vote on and how strong they're going to be when they go to these positions. And so I highly encourage you guys to go and, the video that's running tonight, go there and share it with your friends because they're not here. So go and share it on your social media sites. Go and talk to other people and tell them maybe something that you've seen here tonight just encouraged you. And I really encourage you to do that. You know, we really need to get some strong people in there because, you know, we really didn't name names, but we've got, you know, Bobby Plummer and Betsy Mills who've been in the system for a little while. And, you know, even though I don't know them personally, you know, there's some concern there with some liberal policies and such. So check out your candidates. Check out the other candidates. We want to make sure that who we vote for is truly a freedom candidate on multiple levels. And so we've got to be wise in that.
And I want to add to that because being a small business owner, being someone that was devastated when they closed churches, period, but when a government steps in and does these things, and we're emailing and calling, and Cindy and I did, anyone we could call, anyone we could email, we did over and over and over again, and never heard from anybody. Peeps, nothing. Now they want to get elected, and some of the folks, as Cindy just alluded to, and I will put the predecessor that you all may step in for has been there for years. And I'm reading quotes, and I'm listening to what people are saying. I'm all for what he did. I back him 100%. Well, look at what he did. And look at the governor that he supports. Think about what's being said and pay attention to what's being said, because when I was begging for someone to call me so I could just tell them why the campground should be open, why we don't have to worry about COVID, nobody would call. Now you're here. Send this to as many people as you can, because we've got to do something to stop. And I know it's hard. Some of the questions that were asked, what are we going to do to get in there and stop some of these things? Just be there. Be somebody willing to buck the system, because the system has failed us. And the Lord can make anything happen. I promise you that. So you're here, take it. Invite more friends. When Nate Lamar does this next thing, get more people there. Because we've got to stop what's currently there and who's currently there, and how do we do that? And I think it is new blood. But anyway, you keep going.
Absolutely.
Here, Heather has a quick comment about Facebook.
Okay.
All right. So I might get y'all in trouble. I am actually working with a lot of other like liberty-minded freedom fighter candidates that are running for office. Some of them are running for like representative, things like that. And I had a conversation earlier, and it was very interesting to me. And at first I thought it was just a fluke, but apparently it's not. And so a lot of freedom-minded candidates are getting put in Facebook jail.
I have to say,
I'm in trouble now.
Oh, Heather, you're gone. Yeah, you're out. I'm just kidding.
So he was actually videotaping, and it came up that it was a COVID thing and shut his live down.
So yeah, you know that's happened to me like a
So
ton,
at the
but
beginning.
I want you guys to kind of think outside the box, and so don't just use Facebook. Try to do some of your own research and stuff, because it's becoming very obvious that commie Facebook is doing what it can to suppress candidates coming in, and that's very alarming to me. And so like my own Facebook page that I've had up for District 54, I'm in trouble, so they're not letting it be seen very well.
Yeah, they put you at the bottom.
I actually had somebody contact me who was following my page, who said nothing was coming up on her feed, and I thought that was kind of interesting.
Okay.
But when you do the email, can you just include each of their websites? Because I was along that. Not everybody likes Facebook or uses it. So just website, because the website has a lot.
I'll send them an email, kind of wrapping up tonight, and I'll put on there the Facebook pages and the emails or the websites that you all have. So we'll do that. I think that's probably it. The Freedom for Henry County meetings, we meet the first Wednesday of every month at 7 o'clock. We skipped January because it was the 1st of January.